I first met her on a Thursday morning that didn't feel like anything special. The kind where the sky can't decide if it wants to rain or clear up. I was at the cafe near campus, the one with mismatched chairs and a hum that made you feel invisible in a good way. Maya was my girlfriend's roommate. I knew that in the casual, forgettable way you know people from photos or stories. She was older, mid-40s maybe, with the kind of presence that didn't ask for attention but got it anyway. The first time she looked up from her book, her expression said nothing and everything. Calm, mildly amused, a little too observant. "Ethan, right?" she asked, tilting her head like she was trying to match a name to a sound she'd heard once. "Yeah," I said, setting my coffee down. "Maya," she nodded. "You look younger than I expected." It wasn't an insult. She said it like she was noticing the weather. Still, I didn't know what to do with my hands after that. I folded a napkin, then unfolded it. She went back to reading. I stayed there, pretending to scroll through my phone. Over the next few weeks, we kept running into each other. Not enough to call it routine, but often enough that it felt planned by something quiet and unseen. Once at the laundromat, she was sitting on the folding table eating a muffin, her laundry untouched in the dryer. "You're supposed to take those out before they wrinkle," I said. "I don't follow rules that don't matter," she replied. It should have sounded defensive, but it didn't. It sounded like freedom. When I told her that my girlfriend was always reminding me to do things the proper way, Maya smiled, soft and a little tired. "Proper's overrated," she said. There was something about her pauses, the way she let silence stretch until you started to hear your own thoughts echo. I never knew what she was thinking, but I always knew she was thinking something. Once, at the cafe again, she remembered my order: oat milk latte, no sugar. She handed it to me without a word, her fingers brushing mine for half a second. The kind of touch you could ignore if you wanted to. I didn't. That night, my girlfriend texted me. "Maya says she ran into you again. Be careful, she's complicated." I stared at the message for a long time, then at the three dots that appeared, disappeared, then never came back. I wanted to ask what complicated meant. Instead, I typed "okay" and didn't send it. It was strange how her presence started to feel like a place, one I kept visiting by accident. I'd walk past the cafe window and glance in, half hoping she'd be there, half hoping she wouldn't. Sometimes I'd catch her looking up from her book just as I passed by, like she'd been waiting for me to do exactly that. We'd exchanged the smallest nod, almost nothing at all, but it stayed with me longer than it should have. Last time I saw her that month, she was locking her bike outside the cafe in the rain. She didn't have an umbrella. I hesitated by the door, watching the droplets slide down her sleeve as she tucked her hair behind her ear. She noticed me. "You're late," she said, like we had an appointment. I didn't know we had one. "Guess we do now." She smiled, then turned and walked inside, leaving her bike dripping on the sidewalk. My phone buzzed just then, a new message from my girlfriend. But I didn't look at it. Not yet, because Maya had just glanced over her shoulder and said quietly, "You coming in, or are you one of those who follow rules?" And for the first time in a long while, I didn't know which one I was. It became a pattern I didn't plan. Thursday mornings at the cafe, evenings when my girlfriend was too tired to meet, and Maya somehow always appearing where silence could still be comfortable. She never asked about my relationship. She didn't have to. Her glances filled the space between what was polite and what wasn't supposed to exist. That day, she was sketching something on a napkin when I walked in. A simple line drawing, the outline of a chair, a cup, a hand. "You draw?" I asked. "Only things that don't move much," she said. "People are too complicated." I sat across from her. "You ever try?" She met my eyes. Once. Didn't like the result. Her voice had that half-laugh that made truth sound casual. She folded the napkin in half, then again, hiding the drawing. "Why keep it then?" I asked. Maybe I like remembering that I tried. I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. We ended up walking home together that evening, rain still clinging to the edges of the day. She lived in the same apartment as my girlfriend, one floor above mine. The hallway lights flickered, casting soft shadows along the walls. I forget sometimes you're older, I said before I could stop myself. She laughed, not offended, but thoughtful. You'll stop saying that when you're my age. Time just stops being about numbers. Still, I said, there's a difference. There's always a difference. You just decide if it matters. The elevator was out of order, so we took the stairs. The air between us felt heavier with every step, like something unsaid was trying to climb too. At her door, she paused. You could come in for tea, if you want. I make a terrible cup, but it's warm. I hesitated. The rule-following part of me, the one my girlfriend would approve of, wanted to say no. But I followed her in. Her apartment smelled faintly of cedar and something citrus. Books stacked on the floor. A window slightly open despite the rain. She handed me a chipped mug. My ex used to fix these, she said. Couldn't fix much else, but cups, he was good at that. I smiled, unsure what to do with that confession. You still keep them? Maybe I like the cracks, she said quietly. Makes things easier to hold. She sat across from me, folding her hands. The clock ticked somewhere behind us. Neither of us spoke for a while. When she finally looked at me, there was a softness that made my chest tighten, not attraction exactly, but recognition. Two people quietly admitting that something about this shouldn't feel this easy. I reached for my cup, and our fingers brushed again, light, unplanned, but deliberate in its silence. She didn't move her hand right away, and when she finally did, she smiled like she was forgiving both of us for something we hadn't done yet. The next time I saw her, it was unplanned. Or maybe I'd been planning it without realizing. It was late, almost 9. I'd stopped by the apartment to drop off something for my girlfriend, a charger she'd left at my place. But it wasn't her who opened the door. It was Maya. Hair damp, sleeves rolled up, barefoot. She looked like someone who had been interrupted mid-thought. She's not home, she said, stepping aside automatically. Meeting ran late. I hesitated in the doorway, the charger suddenly feeling ridiculous in my hand. I'll just leave it then, I said. She nodded, but didn't move. You could wait, if you want. Her voice was even. Not invitation, not refusal. Just space. I waited. The living room was dim, lit only by the warm spill from the kitchen. She was making tea again. The same chipped cup, same slow movements. She spoke without looking up. You ever notice how quiet it gets when someone's supposed to be home, but they're not? I swallowed. Yeah. Used to drive me crazy. She paused, turning toward me. Now I think I miss it. She placed a cup in front of me, her fingers brushing mine. Again that same quiet, electric thing that didn't know what to do with itself. I should have said something ordinary. Thanks. Nice place. Anything. But I didn't. She leaned against the counter, arms crossed. You keep looking like you're about to say something. Maybe I am. Her eyes softened. Maybe you shouldn't. The front door clicked. We both froze. Footsteps. A voice. My girlfriend's. Maya didn't move, just gave me that tiny, knowing look that said we did nothing wrong, but something happened anyway. Hey, my girlfriend called from the hallway. Is someone here? Maya smiled faintly, called back. Ethan dropped off your charger. I stood up too fast, nearly knocking my cup over. Tea sloshed against the rim. My girlfriend appeared in the doorway, surprised. You waited? Yeah, just figured I'd say hi. Her eyes darted between us, reading something I couldn't hide. Or maybe I imagined it. Maya's tone stayed calm, almost detached. We were just talking about the rain. The rain, my girlfriend repeated. Maya nodded. Still not following rules, she added, half smiling, and disappeared into her room. Later that night, I lay awake replaying everything. The silence, the touch, the look she gave before leaving. I kept thinking about how she didn't say goodbye. Just that line, maybe you shouldn't. And I wasn't sure if she meant don't say it, or don't want it. The next morning, she texted me for the first time. Just 4 words. You forgot your cup. And beneath that, a photo of it, the chipped one, sitting on her counter. I stared at it for a long time before replying. Then deleted what I wrote. It had been days since the text. No replies, No new messages. Just the silence that fills up like water when you avoid saying what you mean. Then one evening, I saw her again. By accident, or maybe because I was walking the long way home on purpose. She was sitting on the bench outside the bookstore, a paperback in one hand, her other wrapped around a paper cup. It was cold enough to see her breath. She looked up when I stopped in front of her. You remembered where I hide. Didn't know you were hiding. You didn't. She smiled faintly. Guess I'm bad at it. I sat down beside her, careful to leave space. She smelled faintly of rain and coffee. Or maybe I was just imagining the overlap of everything I'd started associating with her. We talked about nothing for a while. The book, the weather, how the streetlights made everything look older than it was. Then she said, "She told me you've been distant lately." My chest tightened. She did. She thinks you're stressed. Maya paused. Eyes still on the street. You are, aren't you? I let out a small laugh, dry and thin. You ever feel like you're in a room with the wrong temperature? Not freezing, not warm, just off. She turned to me then, slowly. All the time. The way she said it made something in me crack open a little. I looked at her hand resting on the bench between us. I didn't reach for it, but my eyes did. She doesn't really see you, she said quietly. Not the way you need to be seen. It was an accusation, just truth said softly enough to sound like kindness. How would you know that? I asked. She shrugged. I noticed things. I swallowed, the words pressing against my throat. And what do you notice about me? She looked at me then, really looked, and I swear the air thinned around us. That you keep apologizing for wanting to be understood. Silence. Long, too long. She turned back toward the street, voice low. You shouldn't be here. I know. Then why are you? I didn't answer. Because the real answer wasn't something that could be said without changing everything. Her hand moved slightly, just enough that our sleeves brushed. She didn't pull away. Neither did I. I could feel it then, that moment before something breaks. The quiet that comes before decisions people can't take back. She looked at me once more, eyes softer than I'd ever seen them. Do you ever think about what would happen if we stopped pretending? My breath caught. I turned to her, words ready and useless. And before I could say anything, or everything, she stood up. Don't answer that, she said. Then she walked away, leaving her paper cup half full on the bench. Steam rising, cooling. A question still hanging in the air, waiting for a reply that never came. After that night on the bench, she disappeared. No texts, no cafe sightings, no glimpses through her apartment window. At first, I told myself she was busy. Then I told myself it didn't matter. But it did. The world felt strangely uncalibrated without her in it. Like I'd been watching a movie that suddenly cut to static. My girlfriend noticed, of course. You're quieter lately, she said one morning, half asleep, scrolling her phone. You okay? Yeah, I said. Just tired. She smiled, already distracted. You should talk to Maya. She's good at reading people. I almost laughed. 2 weeks passed before I saw her again. She was at the cafe, same table, same book, but something had shifted. She looked closed. Not angry. Just quieter in a way that warned me not to ask why. I sat down anyway. You've been gone, I said softly. She didn't look up. Had things to take care of. You could have said something. Could I? Her tone was almost gentle. Would that have helped? I didn't answer. The silence stretched between us, heavy with everything we hadn't said. Finally, she exhaled and set her book aside. My daughter came to visit. That stopped me. You have a daughter? She nodded. She's 23. You'd like her. She doesn't follow rules either. Something inside me tightened. Jealousy, confusion, I don't know. Mostly the feeling of being outside a door I'd thought was slightly open. You never mentioned her, I said. Didn't seem relevant. Seems relevant now. She smiled faintly. That's because you started imagining things that don't belong to you. Her words were careful, but her hands were trembling slightly. We sat in silence for a long time after that. The cafe buzzed around us, cups clinking, a song humming softly from a corner speaker. I wanted to ask if her daughter was the reason she'd pulled away, or if I was. But I didn't. When she finally stood, she said, "You should focus on what's still yours." And before I could say anything, before I could even ask what she meant, she left. The chair beside me rocked slightly, then stilled. That night, I drafted a message. You don't get to just vanish like that. You don't get to tell me it wasn't real. You don't get to. I stopped typing. Deleted everything. Typed again. I hope your daughter's okay. I stared at the blinking cursor, waiting for it to decide for me. Then I locked my phone and set it face down on the table. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused, like life forgot to finish the sentence. I saw her again by accident. Or maybe accidents are just what we call the things we secretly hope for. It was a Sunday afternoon. My girlfriend was out of town visiting her parents, and I'd gone upstairs to return a book Maya had lent me weeks ago, one I hadn't opened since she disappeared. I expected no one to answer, but the door opened before I could even knock twice. She looked surprised, then tired, then nothing at all. "I didn't think you'd come," she said. "I didn't think you'd answer." We both smiled, but only barely. The apartment felt smaller than I remembered, quieter too. A kettle whistled softly on the stove, unattended. She turned the heat off and poured water into 2 mugs, like muscle memory. "Tea again?" I asked. "Habit," she said. We sat at the small kitchen table. The same chipped cups. The same silence pretending not to mean something. Finally, she spoke. "I shouldn't have left like that. I figured you had your reasons." "I did. Doesn't make them good ones." Her voice was steady, but her fingers traced the rim of her cup again and again, like she needed something to hold on to. I took a breath. "You said I was imagining things that don't belong to me." "I did. You were right," I said. "But that doesn't mean they weren't there." She looked up then, not shocked, just still. "You think this is something you can own?" "No," I said quietly. "That's why it hurts." The words hung there, heavy and unadorned. She leaned back, eyes softening. "You remind me of how I used to feel at your age," she said. "Like everything had to mean something. Doesn't it?" She smiled faintly. "Some things only mean what they can. The rest, we learn to leave alone." I wanted to argue, but there was nothing left to win. The room smelled faintly of tea and rain-soaked windows. The kind of scent that makes you remember things that never really happened. She reached across the table, just a small movement, and placed her hand over mine. It wasn't a gesture of promise or apology, just acknowledgement. "I care about you, Ethan," she said. Probably too much for it to stay harmless. "I know," I said. "Me too." She let out a quiet laugh that didn't quite make it past her throat. "So what do we do with that?" I looked at her, at the fine lines around her eyes, the steadiness in the way she held herself. "Maybe nothing," I said. "Maybe that's enough." We sat there until the tea went cold, not moving our hands, not saying more. Then she nodded, almost to herself. "Okay." That was all. Just okay. But it felt like the only word that fit everything we hadn't said. Time passed, the kind that doesn't announce itself, just shifts in small ways. By the time winter softened into spring, everything had changed without either of us saying when. My girlfriend and I broke up quietly. No fights, no drama. Just a conversation that started with, "I think we both know." And we did. She moved out. Maya stayed. For a while, I didn't see her. Just the sound of her bike leaving early in the morning, the flicker of her lamp through the window at night. Enough to know she was there. Then one Thursday, the same kind of sky as the day we met, I saw her again, sitting on the same bench outside the bookstore. A book in her lap, steam curling from a cup of black coffee. I almost kept walking, but she looked up, and that was that. "You still take the long way," she said, smiling a little. "Old habit." Habit's another word for comfort. I sat beside her. No hesitation this time. The air was cool, full of things we didn't need to explain anymore. We didn't talk about the months in between, how strange it was to miss someone who lived a floor away, or how peaceful it had become to just exist near each other without the ache. She handed me her cup. "Try it," she said. "It's coffee," I said. "I thought you were a tea person." "I still am," she replied. "But some mornings, I need something stronger." I took a sip. Bitter, but warm. Still terrible. She laughed, a real one this time. Guess some things don't change. We sat there as the street filled with quiet movement. People heading somewhere, sunlight catching in puddles. I used to think rules kept me safe, I said. Now I think they just kept me busy. She tilted her head. And now I just want to sit here, I said. For a while. She didn't answer right away. Just leaned against me, her shoulder brushing mine. It was small, almost nothing, but it felt like peace. The clock from the cafe across the street chimed faintly, 8:47 a.m. The same time she used to remember my order. The same time I first realized she looked right at people when they spoke, as if listening were a kind of care. We didn't say we were together. We didn't need to. It was there in the quiet way she handed me her cup, in the soft press of her sleeve against mine, in the way the morning finally felt like it had arrived. She turned to me and said, "Still following rules?" I smiled. "Not anymore." And she nodded, as if that was exactly what she'd been waiting to hear all along. "Did this story stay with you? What kind of quiet, real love stories do you want to hear next? The ones that don't shout, but still echo long after they end?"